The Dallas Cowboys get an absolutely dominant win over the Los Angeles Rams in Week 8. We will break it down next on this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, the Dallas Cowboys got a huge win over the Rams, 43-20. In a game that we kind of expected the Cowboys to win. It was a bad matchup for the Rams, but I want to get your overall thoughts here. What does a win like this for the Cowboys mean long term?
Well, I mean, I think, it was kind of the way they won, that was most impressive. I mean, I think, we had questions these last 2 weeks about exactly, what this offense was going to come out. And I think you and I talked about it, leading up to this week. Like, it wasn't just like, do we think that the Cowboys are going to win? It's, how do they look? Like, it's not just about scoring style points or anything, but it's about, can they run the football? Can they score in the red zone? Can the offense look less disjointed and not, so much Dak hero ball? And I felt like you saw a lot more of a complete offense, that the ball was getting around to everybody, that there was efficiency where there hadn't been efficiency before. So I think that, and then the overall note that, this team is really dangerous when there's blood in the water. I think you and I were talking about it. There was a series of 10 plays that started at the end of the first quarter that ended, near the middle of the second quarter, where the score went in 10 snaps of the ball, the score went from 10-3 to 26-3. And obviously not only changed the whole shape of the game, but I mean, I think kind of, put the Rams in a spot where they really, we're going to struggle to come out of it no matter what happened.
Yeah, we've compared this team to use a basketball reference, like the Golden State Warriors in like 2017, 2018, where when they feel like they can dominate a game and take it over, it can happen in a second, right? We've seen this time and time again because of the defense, because of the special teams. They can turn things around really, really quickly. And this was just an example of it. You had a sack by Micah Parsons. You had a block punt by Sam Williams that resulted in a safety. Was it like 4 plays later? The Cowboys scored a touchdown after. So that's a 9-point swing. Then they get the pick six. Like, things just snowball on teams so quickly when the Cowboys are at home. It's a little frustrating that it doesn't happen on the road a little bit more often, but it's pretty incredible. I will say, Landon, I think this was probably, all things considered, the best win of the season for the Cowboys. Would you agree?
I mean, it's hard to argue that it's the most complete one. I think the offense and special teams obviously had huge days as well. The defense, I think the defense have probably had better statistical games, but I mean, that's hard to say when you got a pick six and, a sack and, had a really good day overall. So,
I mean, you were basically just in like not conserved time, but
yeah, exactly.
We were in blowout territory for over 30 minutes of this game.
Absolutely. I mean, look, like we said, it went from 10-3 to 26-3, and that was at the beginning of the second quarter. So the Cowboys had a lot of game where they were playing with a very large lead, and they didn't necessarily need to be aggressive. They just kind of needed to keep it all in front of them and force them to try to march the length of the field while behind all that way. Eventually mistakes were going to happen, and they did. And I think that ultimately, the Cowboys were able to kind of de-teeth a passing attack, which, featured a rookie who at the time led the entire NFL in receiving yards. So I think it was a good job by the Cowboys of kind of putting them on their back foot and then keeping them there for the most of the game.
Yeah, it was 33-3 before the 2-minute warning in the first half. I mean, literally, you played an entire half of blowout football. Though there was one point in the game where the Rams cut it, was at 17-33, where you felt like, oh man, maybe they're getting back into this. And the Cowboys, I think they went down and got a field goal drive, and the next one, then they got a turnover or whatever. Like,
well, it was in an 8-minute drive, and that was the worst part for them, is that the points weren't even the thing, is that they needed time, and they had no time after that, long drive. So, I mean, the Cowboys took the air out of the game when they needed to, which was, I think, the other aspect of the game that we were looking for, the run game being efficient and finding a way, and that seemed to happen a little bit better in the second half.
So we're going to get to CeeDee Lamb and Daron Bland in just a little bit, but I want to talk just quickly about Dak Prescott, because for me, this is the best I think I've seen him play in a while. 25 of 31 for 304 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did have the one red zone interception that he threw a little bit behind Sean McEwen. I don't even know if that ball was intended for Sean McEwen. I think
it was tipped at the line of scrimmage.
Tipped at the line of scrimmage.
And then tipped by McEwen as well. So, I mean, that's kind of tough to put on Dak.
We should also mention there was several times where Dak scrambled on third down to pick up a first down using his legs. Now, he only finished the game with 19 rushing yards, but every single one of those was like to get a first down. I thought Dak was incredible on Sunday.
Yeah, this is Dak at his most comfortable in this offense, right? Like being able to kind of pick up the first downs when he needs to. Yeah, run, Dak, run. I agree, Crypto Keeper. I mean, I don't, again, we're not looking to give Dak a certain amount of carries a game, but when the options aren't there and he can pick up an easy 5 or 6 yards on second down and 10, let's get the 3rd and 4 instead of trying a 1-for-1 pass to your 4th wide receiver down the field. I think,
or if it's 3rd and 4 and they're playing man coverage and you can just scoot out to the left and get out of bounds without taking a hit and getting through. Like he did that 2 or 3 times today. And it's what made this offense just kind of click. It's like, hey, get that first down, keep the chains moving, and everything is going to fall into place.
And you don't have to do it every time, right? On the 4th and 1, Dak was able to stay in the pocket, let the pass protection work around him, and get through his progressions to find Cooks on the crossing route to convert on a big conversion. So, it's about being able to do both. And I think that's really what it is that Dak just basically wasn't mixing it. The Cowboys weren't just mixing Dak's legs into the game, and he just seemed a lot more comfortable. Obviously, there was a lot more specific targeting to CeeDee Lamb, and that has been incredibly successful. And it seems to scale to volume. So the more the Cowboys just need to continue to feed Lamb as much as he can handle until the efficiency drops off a little bit. I think that's going to be a huge part of this. And we'll talk about that in the next segment a lot as well, because I think that's a huge part of why the Cowboys won this game, obviously.
And I was nervous after the first drive where Dak got sacked, I think 3 times on the first drive of the game. I was worried, like, oh man, is he going to get a little bit rattled in this game?
And what you really worry about is McCarthy just completely changing the game plan after that. You worry that, like, oh, he takes 3 quick sacks. Are they going to stop throwing the football? But they didn't. I think they did something like 10 consecutive passes after that. So good on McCarthy and not, going into the shell and getting conservative just because of early, lack of success.
It seems like they did make a little bit of an adjustment to use some more like 6 and 7 man protections. And we talked about this late last week. Like, if you give Dak time, he's going to be able to pick apart the secondary. They just don't have the horses to cover CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks and Jake Ferguson. And that's what happened. Eventually, the Cowboys settled down, and they were unbelievable. And why I think this was the best game for the Cowboys overall is against like the Jets and the Patriots. They were getting some turnovers on defense. They weren't scoring in the red zone. That wasn't the case here. The Cowboys were super efficient outside of one red zone interception inside the 20.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, too, that we had kind of complained about was the targeting outside of CeeDee Lamb and how the balls were going around to everyone else. I specifically asked for more targeting for Ferguson, and lo and behold, look, they get an early red zone touchdown to him on the seam route that they've been trying to hit the last 3 weeks. They finally got it going. Ferguson was 4 for 4. 4 targets, 4 receptions for 47 yards of the touchdown. Brandon Cooks actually got the deep ball thrown to him. You know what I'm saying? Like, after running all those 9 routes and talking about, trusting the process, he continued to be a big part of this offense.
Converted a 4th down in the second half.
And Gallup was efficient in his targeting. You know what I'm saying? Only got 3 targets, but converted 2 of them for 20 yards. And that's what we wanted to see. It's just a little bit less just focused on, just Brandon Cooks or just Gallup, and more just kind of seeing the ball going around a little bit more and more CeeDee Lamb targets. I think this kind of targeting is really where this offense finds its sweet spot, I think.
You brought up the man of the hour, CeeDee Lamb. Let's talk about his absolutely stellar performance in Week 8 next. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or you're scouting the waiver wire, each week we're going to provide you the players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us in this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. It's Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. Dalton Kincaid has stepped up into a big role with Dawson Knox getting hurt. He's gotten hot with Josh Allen the past 2 weeks, scoring for the first time in his career in Week 8 against the Buccaneers. Kincaid gets a smash spot in a shootout against the Bengals on Sunday night. Cincinnati has been better in coverage outside and versus wide receivers than tight ends. Kincaid will once again come through for managers looking for a mid-season pick-me-up at the position. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championships. And eBay Motors knows that a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. The same is true with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Locked On, our football season is here, and Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On NFL Kickoff Live each Friday. Locked On will go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Hosts Anitra Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs will break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchup, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, and more. Plus, get the in-depth local analysis from our stable of NFL hosts across the country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff Live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on any Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Landon, let's talk about CeeDee Lamb. An absolutely monster performance. 12 catches for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns on 14 targets. I thought he was outstanding. Oh, you're muted. That's right. You're just so excited to talk about CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, and I had to turn it down a little bit. I think just, it was everything too. Like you just saw crossing routes, stop routes. There was I wanted to go see what the all 22 was on that. I think it was his second touchdown where he was just completely wide open. I was surprised that they lost him. And then, you saw him, making one for one, down the field, sideline catches. I think he's just shown you he can do a little bit of everything, and they found a bunch of different ways to get him the football. Really interesting screen routes, swing routes out to him, and I think that's really what has been, and I hope that continues. Is that just the kind of variety of ways that they found to get him the football, to scheme him open, to get him the ball on the run. That's where they found the most success. The ability to have him in the slot is only really useful if you are able to move him around a little bit. I think focusing him on only being on the slot, can kind of get a little stale. So I think depending on the matchups, he should be moving around. I think you saw a lot of that. His usage was, varied enough that they weren't able to kind of keep tabs on him or always get him with double coverage. And honestly, I think that's a huge portion of what happened on that, the wide open touchdown as well. And there were a couple different times when it just felt like there wasn't a defender anywhere near him. And sometimes it was route running, but other times I think it was design as well. So I'm really excited to kind of go back and study the all 22 and see exactly what they were doing, because it really felt like they were getting a lot of different looks for him. And that kind of varied looks, caused a lot of problems for the defense.
One of the reasons that we wanted to see CeeDee Lamb more involved in the offense is because of the efficiency. Like every time the Cowboys throw him the football, generally good things happen. I believe, I'll have to double check, but I believe over the last 2 weeks, he has like 280 yards and has 2 incompletions. I mean, it's unbelievable how efficient Dak is throwing to him. So why not just build your whole offense around getting CeeDee Lamb the ball? It's what the Rams have done forever with Cooper Kupp. Now, obviously, that wasn't the case today. What the Vikings have done with Justin Jefferson and some of the other teams, it's like let's move around our best player. Let's get him in advantageous matchups, and just feed him the ball, because we know more often than not he's going to make plays. And I can't even tell you how many different times today they got him the ball on a slant or a dig, and he catches the ball, and it's an extra 11 yards after that where he's just spinning and not going down on first contact. There's been a lot of really good CeeDee Lamb games. I think this might have been his best.
Yeah, and again, I think that's been our question a lot of times. I mean, you brought it up. Can the efficiency scale to volume, right? To like high volume targets. I mean, he had 14 targets today and he caught 12 passes. I mean, that's scaling up. So if he can do that, the way that they were able to do that obviously was moving him around and getting him different looks. And that's how you continue to get a lot of efficiency, despite, throwing the ball his way over and over and over again, and the defense knowing that you're going to continue to throw the football his way. Again, I think that also what really, really helped was being more efficient in the targeting outside of CeeDee Lamb, because it just helped you get more of the first downs, which continued to allow you to target CeeDee Lamb. So being able to loop in Ferguson more, and really Ferguson just being able to convert a lot of his opportunities more than he was in those first few games, and then them trusting him more to give him those more targets today, I think was a big improvement. I think, Brandon Cooks, he's been running these 9 routes. We might as well throw the ball to him sometimes. So I think we're seeing it a little bit more. And when he's getting the ball, now it's just another thing for these defenses to think about. And what does that do? That opens things up for everybody more overneath. So it all fits together. I feel like the offense is clicking in a way that it wasn't, previously, even the last time we saw them play, even though they won, it didn't necessarily feel always so efficient. I think this was the best offensive game we've seen so far, in the sense of what we needed to see this offense do, it was able to do.
Really quickly, here's a stat on CeeDee Lamb. Last 3 games, Dak Prescott is 23 of 26 for 336 yards and 2 touchdowns throwing to CeeDee Lamb. 3 incompletions. I mean, that's why he had 14 targets today, and if this game would have been closer, you could have told me he should have gotten 17, 18, because there's not a lot that goes bad when you're targeting CeeDee, and that opens up for everybody else to be more efficient, as you just mentioned.
Yeah, and again, I think we also need to give hats off to the offensive line, because as you said, as the game went on, the Cowboys offensive line was able to just hold up things up front. Dak had plenty of time to get through his progression. Again, I point back to that 4th and 1 play where Dak was in the pocket, was able to stand tall in the pocket and get all the way through his progressions to a crossing route to it was so late in the snap that Cooks was almost out of bounds. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that shows good pass protection and a real rebound from what was happening early in the game.
We should mention there was an injury in the offensive line. So no Tyron Smith to start today. The Cowboys held him out with his stinger. It sounds like, according to Jane Slater, that he wanted to play. The Cowboys decided to hold him back for a week. In hindsight, glad they did. Smart move. Right? Obviously, now hopefully, assuming everything goes well, you'll have him next week against the Eagles. You probably won't have Chuma Edoga, who started at left tackle. He injured his ankle, was carted off the field. I don't believe, as of right now, we have an update. Am I wrong?
I actually saw that it sounds like it's a low ankle sprain, so it's not a high ankle. So he might not play next week. But I mean, I think whenever it's a low ankle, you think 2 to 3 weeks at the most. Yeah. Obviously, depending on the severity. So that's good. We did see a little bit of Awesome Richards playing left tackle. I can't wait to go back and watch the film on that. Yeah. But I honestly, after the first drive, I was really nervous that the Cowboys tackles just weren't going to hold up. Terrence Steele got beat multiple times. Chuma Edoga got beat for a sack, and I believe the first play of the game. But that unit did settle down as the game went on. And I mean, passable is too low. I thought they were pretty good in this game. Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, I think if I'm not mistaken, I saw NFL advanced stats say that it was actually ended up being the lowest pressure percentage that the Cowboys had all season. Which again, it's quite shocking considering the fact that in the first 4 offensive passing snaps, Dak was on the ground. But I think that as the game went on, they got a lot more comfortable. I also think that the Rams, kind of lost a lot of will too as the game went on a little bit. It was just kind of ugly. So that certainly helped with the kind of protecting Dak and keeping him off the ground.
All right, are you ready to do our Daron Bland conversation?
Let's do it. I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Because Daron Bland, another pick 6 on Sunday. He is up to 9 interceptions in his short NFL career. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Did the game go to a 2-minute or go to a timeout? Time to order in with DoorDash. Is it halftime? That's ordering in time. 2-minute warning. You got it. That is your cue to order in. Whenever the game clock stops, that is your time to order in with DoorDash. Why root for your favorite team on an empty stomach? Order on DoorDash and save on your football watch parties this year. If you're out in Arlington, you're watching the Cowboy game and you want to grab some food before you go into the stadium, check out 24/7 Tacos. I know Landon has a bunch of places out in Dallas, out in Arlington you love. You want to name one?
I'd be getting Torchy's or Velvet Tacos. I mean, Mexican food would be coming to my place immediately if I was in Dallas right now.
All of your favorite restaurants and stores from retail to grocery are on the app, so you can shop everything you need to get game day ready. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code LOCK23. Subject to change. Terms apply. Again, get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code LOCK23. Subject to change. Terms apply. All right, Landon, let's talk about Daron Bland. What did you see from him in this game?
Well, I mean, just another a situation where, he takes advantage of a quarterback being just slightly imperfect and, just constantly having eyes on the quarterback and taking advantage and just, always just pouncing on his opportunities in a way that you just don't see cornerbacks outside of Trayvon Diggs do. It's just it wasn't a great throw by Stafford, but I mean, the fact that he was able to get eyes on the ball while kind of sorting through what was going on in front of him, which if I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, he had crossing wide receivers in front of his face, which I think caused some of the confusion with Stafford as well, because he wasn't exactly sure where to put it. But Bland was able to know what he was doing, keep it all in front of them while looking at Stafford, come back, make the catch, obviously, and finish the play. And this is the touchdown. He had another really good play later on in the game where I'm pretty sure it was a tackle for a loss. And, if you look at it, just the lack of numbers, I think, is really what's impressive here. The Rams were down, by big points, and I understand that Stafford didn't play, for a good portion of this game, but for even when he was there, the Rams were down for a good portion of this game, and they weren't, having a ton of success throwing the football, despite the fact that Puka Nacua is the NFL leader in receptions, I think, coming into or receiving yards maybe coming into this game. So. Cooper Kupp's been back for 2 games now. I understand he's not fully healthy, but look, that's still quite a twosome. And they were able to hold them to very little production, and even when Stafford was in there. So I think hats off obviously goes to the pass rush, which was fearsome, and obviously a big part of why Stafford wasn't able to play in the second half. But I think a good reason that they were able to kind of get some of that pass rush and have success there was because the coverage was really tight on the back end. And I'm excited to kind of go back and study this some more. But just watching, just from the broadcast tape, you could tell that they were having success against these guys because Stafford was having to hold on to the ball a long time.
So Daron Bland has 9 interceptions, and we are now a year and a half into his NFL career. Amazing. He has more interceptions at this stage of his career than Trayvon Diggs did. And everybody believes Trayvon Diggs is the best ball hawk cornerback in the league, and he really might be. But there's a chance that he might not be the best ball hawk on his own team, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, when you have 9 interceptions in basically a full season like that, because he started, what was it, week 8, week 9 last year?
That sounds right.
You're doing something right. I also want to say there was multiple plays in this game that Daron Bland made that weren't the interception that ended up helping the Cowboys. There was a tackle that he made to force a 4th down. He had a couple of pass breakups early in the game. I think Daron Bland is on the verge of stardom if he's not already there. I mean, he is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. There's just no way to deny it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's something that we talked about when Trayvon Diggs got hurt, is that this, last year when this happened, when there was an injury at the cornerback position and Bland had to come in and play, that was his opportunity to become a starter. That was his opportunity to show the world that he deserved the playing time to become a starter. Now, I think I said this on Peter's show on Locked On Sports today, the day after Trayvon Diggs got hurt. This situation with Trayvon Diggs, is now Bland's opportunity to show the world that he's a star. And he has, since I said that, he's had 3 pick sixes. So clearly he either heard me or he was well on his way on his own. So yeah, I mean, I think clearly he's been one of, if not the best cornerback in the NFL, since he's got a chance to start. And so I think he's really taken his opportunity and run with it.
And we should mention Micah Parsons because he had another ridiculous day. He had a sack.
Yeah.
He had another sack that got overturned on a 3rd down where he hit Matt Stafford's arm.
Forced a couple incompletions as well.
Forced a couple. There was
pressure.
Yep. There was one where he hit Stafford right in the body on a 3rd down where he threw the ball out of bounds. I mean,
they called it an incomplete. Yeah, when it may have
he's
been
unbelievable.
very, very close to a fumble. It was just. He's just constantly everywhere. I mean, it's just like I mean, just the fact that he was in the middle on the outside. Stafford finally kind of got to the point where he was just trying to get rid of the ball because he just knew that he was coming, and it then eventually opened it up for everybody. Like Dorrance Armstrong kind of got a very clear pathway to use a swim move inside because everybody was focused on getting down into blocking Micah inside. So Dorrance had this huge lane to kind of easily win a one-on-one and then get inside. So. When Mike eats, everybody eats, and I think that was the case. That there wasn't a huge number of sacks in this game, but I think the fact is that that's because they were desperate to get the ball out quickly and weren't able to look downfield and have the kind of yards that they normally would in this offense.
Last thing before we go, were the Cowboys using Sam Williams as a gunner this game? Because there was multiple times.
Gunner won, baby. He was incredible. I mean, look, the fact is that he's an incredible athlete, and won right away on his on that first one when he was able to get down the field and corner the force
they weren't using him as a gunner, right? They were just using him as the last guy in the line of scrimmage.
I think he was the guy. He was split out wide.
I'll have to watch it because it was twice I noticed him. He was the first guy down the field, and it was like in the spot that a gunner was at. Again, we're getting really nerdy and technical here, but it was unbelievable to watch.
I think it was the radio broadcast with Babe and Brad. They were talking about how Dexter Coakley used to be a gunner at times, and he was 6'2", 250. So, I mean, look, if the shoe fits, man, I mean, that's got to be the most terrifying thing ever, to see a full sprinting Sam Williams screaming as he comes at you. I would wave my hand as soon as the guy punted the ball, to be honest.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I think the Cowboys used to use Hollywood Henderson as a gunner.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's right.
It's kind of the same thing. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Every day. We'll be back on Tuesday to break down some of the film. I can't wait to dive into this film. This is going to be a much more exciting film study than maybe the last couple of games that we've had.
Yeah.
So make sure you tune in for that. Again, we are free and available on all platforms. Check out the show on YouTube. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I am at Marcus_Mosier. Enjoy your Victory Monday, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.